we're here today with Sara to talk about Lilly's Lighthouse.
Yep.
And I was doing my research on you last night, and I'm reading this story about Lilly, who's your daughter, and the inspiration for all of the work that you do and all of the sweat equity you put into Lilly's Lighthouse.
Right.
So I'm reading your story. I'm reading about your daughter. And at first I'm like, this is the saddest story I've ever read.
Yeah.
And my heart was breaking because at one point your daughter was having 50 seizures a day.
For 7 years straight.
For 7 years
So,
straight.
you know, she was impaired by her condition at 5 weeks old. She onset with epilepsy. That was when she was diagnosed. And she was having 50 seizures a day on average for 7 years straight. And there were not days where she didn't have seizures. I mean, sometimes she'd have more than that. But when you're averaging that many, it's really irrelevant, right? 50 is enough to know that it was.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't
the count
matter.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. All that tells us is that she was significantly impaired by this condition.
And nothing you did helped her, right? There was some talk about the keto diet. You put her on a high protein diet and she got some relief. So let's back this up. Let's talk about, what Lilly's Lighthouse does.
Okay. So Lilly's Lighthouse transforms the lives of those living with epilepsy by funding research that bridges the gap between traditional and non-traditional approaches. So really what we're doing right now, our mission is to fund mushroom research for the treatment of epilepsy. But in the future, I think that we'll be looking at other botanicals as well.
Yeah. So how did you, so your daughter suffered from epilepsy, you got limited results from traditional therapies. How did you come across the non-traditional mushroom therapy?
Not only got limited relief, but we failed every available treatment. So when you think about that, Lilly failed 13, 14, 15 different pharmaceuticals.
What does that mean to fail? Like no response, no...
Yes, that she was pushed to the point of the pharmaceutical being so high in her system that she was at toxic levels, which I saw Lilly completely out of her mind so many times in a toxic psychosis because the drugs were up so high. You should never see your child like that. And when you're the one doing it, it makes it even more challenging. So not only did she fail all the pharmaceuticals, we didn't have any left to try. She was assessed as a candidate for brain surgery 3 times and was assessed not to be. We put an implant in her chest called a VNS, which is a vagus nerve stimulator. And that attaches to the vagus nerve. It goes up to the brain and it's meant to interrupt any electrical activity that's abnormal to try to offshoot a seizure occurring. It actually gave her different types of seizures. She was having drop seizures.
Oh my God.
I know. And it made her condition really bad. We actually rushed her to hospital. She was having a seizure every 8 minutes at the time.
What causes epilepsy? Like what is the whole, pathology of the condition?
Well, for most, there is no causation that can be identified. Lily's had every possible test that you can have. It's not caused genetically for her. Her brain looks perfect, which means that it's not caused by a growth or some abnormality in her brain. For me, I think it was environmental.
Yeah. And like part of your story is that you took control over how you were going to approach the situation, right? So how did you find, first of all, non-traditional, non-westernized, highly pharmaceutical therapies have been around for a while. Right. But people are a little, there's a perception with taking that route. So how did you, I can't even imagine how you, first of all, as a parent, how horrifying that whole thing is.
Right.
And
Terrifying.
You will do anything.
I didn't know anything about epilepsy before this happened to us. We did not have epilepsy in our family. But now I know that it affects everybody because that's the statistics.
Yeah.
And when Lilly was diagnosed, we started having friends come out of the woodworks telling us they had epilepsy.
Yeah.
So I think in order to answer this question, Amy, I have to take a little bit of a step back into my background.
Yeah.
Because I think it really was my background that gave me the tools to be able to figure it out.
Okay, let's go there.
And then act on it, right? So I'm originally from Adelaide, South Australia. I'm not from America, obviously. I talk a little bit differently. But what most people don't really know about me is I have a law enforcement background. I spent all my career in law enforcement, which projected me to Washington, D.C. at the Australian Embassy. I've worked with countless international domestic law enforcement agency partners on any jobs that had international linkage. So I had a focus on national security, counterterrorism, money laundering, people smuggling, and narcotics.
I didn't know this. I thought this was like a kumbaya.
So this is completely way out of my realm, right?
Wow.
Yeah. But there's an importance to that piece because during my journey and my career in law enforcement, at one point I was trained as an intelligence analyst. And so research was my capability.
Okay.
And I would find the solution to the problem, right? So we have a narcotic syndicate. I'm going to bust it and I'm going to figure out the pieces and put it together. And then, a team will be assembled and we'll launch an operation. So when Lilly was diagnosed with epilepsy, it was already in my nature to start researching.
Yeah.
I can tell you that from when Lilly was diagnosed, I haven't even read a book of choice in at that time. Lily's 11 now. It's all been research driven. It's all led me to this point.
Right.
So when this happened to Lilly, I started researching and I've tried everything with Lilly. I mean, I was not going to not do mainstream medicine. I was going to find the answer myself and look at the whole spectrum. What's available out there? What can I do? What therapies might be helpful? And I've tried everything with her. I've done acupuncture. I've done a lot of things. I used to actually beat myself up because it took me 7 years to figure out mushrooms were going to be the thing.
Yeah.
Because I would be put on jobs all over the place because I was better. I was a better agent at finding out the solution to the problem. So I always got the hard cases. And this was the biggest problem I had to solve in my life. And I used to beat myself up because I'm like, why can't I get this? I was trained to do this, So I think that was already there.
Yeah.
And then there was a renaissance of psychedelic research coming up in research, right? There were papers starting to be published again. I spent my time, months actually, researching psychedelics and how they work on brain receptors. I knew that Lilly didn't have any of these brain conditions that they were using psychedelics for. She doesn't have bipolar. She doesn't have PTSD.
So was that's how it was that was the research was centric to those conditions?
They were the new papers that were coming up. That there was.
Did you read all of them?
Yeah, I compiled a complete intelligence dossier. I mean, I have a complete intelligence dossier, right?
Yeah. Did you highlight?
Not only that, I mean, I pulled every research from Europe. I mean, this was worldwide. I went right back to rat model studies.
Yeah.
I speak fluent German, so I was able to decipher some of the studies that were done years ago, right? Because psychedelics were studied in the 40s and the 50s.
Yeah, it's not new.
No,
right? Like it's
not
always
new.
been around,
it was
but kind
just,
of on the fray.
It was just suppressed for some time because, legislation and politics.
Mm-hmm.
So what I had come to learn from my research campaign into psychedelics was that there were a few intelligence gaps in the research. There was assumption made that they were correlating that it was the psychotropic element that was helping with these brain conditions. But when you're giving a whole mushroom, there are so many other bioavailable compounds in these things. You can't correlate unless you're giving an isolate, right? And so I felt confident that I was going to be able to find some non-psychedelic mushrooms that potentially could help Lilly. At the time, I didn't know that it was going to give her seizure control. Lilly was doing so badly. I felt like I was losing her. I was using rescue medicine to save her life 3 times a week 7 years ago. 4 years ago now, almost 4 years ago when she was 7. I knew I was running out of time with her. I just wanted to give her a better quality of life. I didn't realize that it was going to be this life-changing for her, and now, as I know for so many others.
This was going to improve quality of life, right? But not save her.
No, I was just trying to get her into a better position.
How did you find the non-psychedelic, like the more medicinal mushrooms? Like, how did this even...
Well, after I put the psychedelic research aside, then I did another dossier. So this took months of research. This was not something that I was just, I'm going to give Lilly mushrooms, you know.
Right.
Everything I do is methodical and purposeful and logical, right? And so once I had done the psychedelic research, I then started researching functional mushrooms. Now, this is a little confusing because in other places in the world, it's medicinal mushrooms. Okay. And America has adopted this terminology of functional mushrooms. And I can understand why, because if you don't really know the difference, and I think it's important to kind of identify what functional mushrooms are, they're a variety within the mushroom species that have been used in functional medicine, but they're not psychedelic, but rather distinguished by their adaptogenic properties.
Okay, so give me an example of that.
Like ability to like mitigate stress.
So like lion's mane, like all of these teas that are out.
Right, okay. And I think lion's mane is the sexy one right now. I think it has been since the rise of functional mushroom use, because it's the most well-studied and researched right now.
Right, and it's tasty too.
Totally. And so, you know, there's lots and lots of research out there now on lion's mane, you know, creating new neuron pathways, neurogenesis, right? You know, improving cognition. So these are all wonderful things, especially when you're talking about a condition that causes cognitive decline.
Yeah.
Right? So I had decided that I wanted to try Lilly on 2 species actually, and lion's mane was one of them, and Reishi was the other one. So I felt like Reishi would act potentially maybe like an anticonvulsant, but I didn't know. And then the lion's mane would help her with the cognition piece. And I thought,
and how are they? Is it like an oil? Is it? How do you? How does it all go down?
Yeah, I mean, I treat this like medicine for her, and I weigh everything out. I encapsulate it, and I give her that way. She's dosed now 4 times a day, and I've done that always because her metabolism is really unnaturally fast, and I don't want to lose coverage. But you know, I want to really quickly talk about the dosing thing, because this comes up all the time, and I'm not a medical doctor and I cannot give advice there. But I want people to be really aware about the mushroom supplement industry. Because,
let's talk about that, because that is like a whole cottage industry.
Because I can't even tell you how many times I've heard people say, or they've come back to me and said, hey, I heard Lily's story. I went down to Sprouts and I grabbed a tincture, off the shelf, and I gave that to my child, and it just didn't work for us.
Yeah.
Then they tried a quality product and all of a sudden it's working for them. So I want people to be really aware that if they're going to try functional mushrooms, they need to be sourcing the right products, because since, this push and public eye on functional mushrooms, there's mushroom companies popping up all the time. And I spend a lot of time keynoting to industry about this because I feel like it's their responsibility to put the best products on the market if people are going to be out there using them as medicine.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of things you got to look for. I look for a 1 to 10 extraction. I use a powder because that's just the product at the time that I felt was the industry-leading product. And we've stuck with it. You know, this was 4 years ago now. So there were very few functional mushroom products on the market.
How do you know, like what, when you say, you know, quality is the whole key to the success, well, how do you know? Like,
you want to make sure you're getting a 1 to 10 roughly in their extraction. You want to make sure it's 100% fruiting body because a lot of these products will pass themselves off as 100% mushroom, but they're not. When you actually look at the label, they don't even grow the fruiting bodies. They grow them on grain, which is gluten is a real problem for epilepsy. It's a trigger. Wow. And they'll grind up the whole bag and that is mushroom product. But it's not. It's just the mycelium, which is the pre-root before the mushrooms pin and become fruiting bodies. So I look for 100% fruiting body products. A 1 to 10 extraction is going to be way more potent than something like a 1 to 1 or 1 to 5. So I look for those two things. Then I look at all the labeling, right? Has it been pesticide residue tested, microbial tested, right? Is it US organic? I look for these things because if companies are putting labels on these and batch testing every batch, they value what they're doing, right? They have a bit more heart than the next person. And you, especially with mushrooms, they have the ability to be a bioaccumulator. So you don't want heavy metals or toxic properties in these things that you're consuming to try and benefit your health and that you're actually impairing yourself. So you've got to be really, really careful with supplements as a whole, especially mushroom supplements.
Because it's a whole thing right now, you know, with mushrooms. So, okay, so you did all the research. You've got dossier 1, dossier 2, dossier 3.
Yeah, because then I researched the supplement companies.
Right, you're right. Like it just keeps going ad infinitum. So when did you start like seeing results with Lilly?
Immediately.
Like within the same day?
Immediately. She was so impaired by her condition. I felt like she was dying on me, right? So her turnaround was really fast. I noticed the differences right away because of that, I think. So when we gave her first dose, it was like we put a key in the lock and turned it and she was a different person. So I'll give you a few examples of that. She went 9.5 weeks seizure free.
That's amazing.
Right? And she got to Thanksgiving and the Thanksgiving turkey triggered a seizure, which makes sense because tryptophan works off brain receptors and now she doesn't eat turkey. Right. Okay. And then she went 2 months seizure free. But within that first week, 3 different therapists said to me, "What have you done with Lilly? It's like you've taken her off all her medication. She's a different child." 8 weeks before we started functional mushrooms with her, she was assessed. She had an IEP with the district, right? The school district. It's an evaluation plan on what services she needs to catch up, get on track, right? Occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech, these things. She was assessed and had that assessment done 8 weeks before starting mushrooms. And her physical therapy goal was Lilly will navigate her environment and only fall once a day. And Lilly was so impaired cognitively, she was falling 10 times a day, covered in bruises. Her service dog is trained mobility. She couldn't get up and down the stairs by herself. She was like a little drunk driver everywhere. And I mean, it looked like we beat her up. I would say to my husband, they're going to call people on us because, you know, she is just covered in bruises. Like it's heartbreaking. 8 weeks after starting functional mushrooms, the physical therapist signed out that Lilly was of developmental age for physical therapy and she's not required that service in 4 years. Wow. 8 weeks. From 8 weeks, the girl went from not being able to stand up. So take the whole seizure piece out of it, right? Like, take that aside, put that aside. Her quality of life, she went from not being able to navigate her environment to swimming, jumping, monkey bars by herself, riding a bike. These are all things that happen like that. I had been dragging her to swim lessons because she loves water. She surfs. She loves water. I know. Or she horse rides and surfs and skateboards, which is like, if you want to talk about epilepsy, probably they're not the sports.
No.
You know, so, you know, I mean, she was just like, instantly, I said to my husband, I am going to drag Lilly to swim lessons twice a week till she's 30 if I have to, and get her to swim, you know. And I had been doing that for years. Started functional mushrooms, she started swimming. Like, it was always there.
It's crazy.
I know.